Hey all, welcome back to Wuthering Waves. So Brant's kit has been added into the game so we can see what he does. We can see some of his multipliers and all of that. I've already looked through it and I do have some thoughts. In general, he looks like an excellent character, but there are two glaring issues in my opinion, and we're going to go through what they are and my general thoughts on the character. So if you go into the gallery here and into Crossing Stars, you can see Brant's in here and you can actually look at all of his information, including his resonance chains, so his dupes, and the kit. And what we're mostly interested in here is the kit. So let's get into it. First off, I like to see what the Forte circuit is. That usually contains what the character's kit focuses on. Right off the bat, we can see Brant gains additional attack based on his energy regen. So he scales off energy regen like Shorekeeper, for example. For every 1% of his energy regen over 150, Brant gains additional 12 points of attack up to 1560. So if you take 1560 and divide it by 12, you get 130. So it's in addition to 150. So you need 280% energy regen on Brant to maximize this buff. Now I'll be real, that is a lot of energy regen. So he's going to be quite hard to build to maximize this buff. Okay, so what you're seeing here is basically a simulation of Brant's stats, but I only really added in things that affect his energy regen. So I give him a 4 cost with an energy regen substat, 2 3 costs with energy regen main stat, and each one of them also has an energy regen substat, and then 1 costs with energy regen substats as well. So that all 5 echoes have energy regen substats. The substat itself that I gave them is 6.8, so that's the lowest roll you can get. It can go up to 12.4, but this is like the worst case scenario in all echoes. And we can see that from this, we hit 208% energy regen, which is about 72% off of that max 280 that you need. This obviously is a problem because this means that the rest needs to come from your weapon. Because if we look here, none of the stat bonuses give us energy regen, right? This is crit rate, this is attack, and then the inherent skills also do not provide any extra energy regen. So energy regen will have to come from echoes, your weapon, or buffs. As far as I can remember, no one really buffs your energy regen right now. Now we do have a 5-star weapon with an energy regen stat in the game in Stellar Symphony, which is Shorekeeper's weapon, and it gives you up to 77% energy regen. So we can count on that on Brant's signature weapon. If you're planning to pick up the signature weapon, you add 77 to this and it's over 280, you're good. You could probably shave off an energy regen substat or 2 depending on your rolls, because I mean, let's face it, you're not going to roll 6.8 on all of them, right? You're going to get a little bit extra, potentially even pretty high rolls. So I would say that if you get the signature weapon, you probably only need energy regen subs on 3 echoes, something like that. Maybe you can even do less than that, or you can swap one of the energy regen main stats with a fusion damage bonus. But generally speaking, if you get low rolls, you could probably still shave off a few substats with his signature. But if you're not planning to get his signature, what are your options? Realistically, your only 4-star option is Overture. It gives you up to 51.8% energy regen, which is quite a bit less than what Brant's weapon will give you, 25.2% less to be exact. So in this case, you would basically need substats on all, and you need some decent rolls to make up for that 25% difference, which makes Brant not a super free-to-play friendly unit. Other than that, you can go into the 3-star territory. There is Sword of Voyager that gives you 32%, but now you're kind of like, maybe you shouldn't even pull for Brant if this is all you have. So it is kind of restrictive on how you can build Brant in terms of his energy regen, but I would say it's not impossibly hard. Maybe going for his signature is a good move, but you can get by with Overture. And it's also important to remember, I've plugged in the numbers for Overture. If you go with an Overture, you're hitting about 260% energy regen. So you're really just missing out on about 240 attack, which is significant, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not gonna make or break your build. So even in the worst case scenario where your energy regen rolls are really low, you can still get a decent build. And I would say if you don't hit the 280%, if you're within the 250 to 280% range, I think you're probably good. I don't think missing out on a bit of attack there will ruin your Brant, especially because we're about to see that he actually does insane amounts of damage. So with that out of the way, let's keep looking into his kit. Then here we have Waves of Acclaims. Heal all nearby resonators in the team when Bravo reaches 25, 50, 75, and 100. What is is Bravo? Brant can hold up to 100 Bravo, obtain Bravo when normal attacks hit the target, when intro skill hits the target, when resonance skill hits the target. Bravo is essentially the forte gauge. So then we have Return from Ashes. When Bravo is full, replace resonance skill Anchor Away with Return from Ashes. Consume all Bravo to perform Return from Ashes, dealing fusion damage considered basic attack damage, and generate a shield. Casting this skill when in a flame ends this state after Return from Ashes ends. We can tell that Return from Ashes is probably going to be a big nuke, right? And if we look here, Return from Ashes damage, mind you, this is level 1. It hits 6 times, and if you look at the final hit here, it's 665% multiplier at level 1. That is a lot of damage at level 1. If we go by the usual scaling of this game, if you get it to level 10, you're probably looking at 1200% multiplier here, which is insane. His damage is going to be super high. Trust me on that. So now we need to figure out, what is this a flame thing that they're describing here? If we go to Resonance Liberation, let's read through this. Deal fusion damage to targets within the range and heal all nearby resonators in the team before entering the flame state. What is a flame? The efficiency of gaining Bravo is increased by 100% when normal attack or resonance skill Anchors Away hits the target. Meanwhile, Forte Circuit Theatrical Moment is replaced by My Moment. What is My Moment? Brant gains additional attack based on his energy regen. For every 1% of his energy regen over 150, Brant gains additional 20 points of attack up to 2600. So essentially this is an upgrade to the original buff, and you get this while in a flame state. So you can see here how Brant kind of plays. So you intro into him Resonance Liberation. That puts you in a flame, which will allow you to regen Bravo faster and gives you a bigger buff. You build up your Bravo with your basic attacks, with your skill, and once you hit 100 Bravo, you skill them with this super nuke, Return from Ashes, and obliterate all the enemies, and then you outro into the next character. So that's essentially what I think the rotation is going to be. It's a pretty clean rotation, and I can tell you that nuke will hit super hard. So he's not just a healer, a support, no. He's a DPS. He's a full-on DPS. You could think of him as a sub DPS that hits really hard. So now if we look at the resonance skill here, Brant launches himself into the air and blasts all targets in an area, dealing fusion damage while in midair. If Bravo is not full, Resonance skill Anchors Away is replaced with plunging attack. Then let's look at his inherent skills. Healing provided by Waves of Acclaims is increased by 20%. Waves of Acclaims is the heal that goes out when his Bravo hits certain thresholds. And then the other skill, Brant's Resistance to Interruption, is increased during mid-air attacks and gains 15% fusion damage bonus. Then we've seen already, he's got crit rate upgrades here and attack percent upgrades. And finally, we are going to go into the last bit of his kit that I believe is a bit controversial. I don't see people talk about it that much, but it says amplify the incoming resonator's fusion damage by 20% and resonance skill damage by 25% for 14 seconds. So this clearly is really good for Changli in theory. It increases her fusion damage. Changli's damage profile is mostly resonance skill damage. So 2 buffs that she can fully take advantage of, which is great. But there is a final part of this message that says, or until the resonator is switched out. Now, if you've played Changli, if you know that Changli is heavily quick swap friendly. You want to quick swap with Changli. You want to do that. But this buff creates a situation where you either have to pick staying in her and wasting potential damage from swapping out, or you swap out after you deal your biggest nuke. In my opinion, this is something that Kuro should have changed by now, and it hints at something for the future. When the game released originally, we had Calcharo and Yinlin. Yinlin and Calcharo had this exact same issue. Calcharo wanted to quick swap into Yinlin back and forth. But the problem is you couldn't do it with Calcharo because you would lose Yinlin's outro buff. So you'd end up just not doing the quick swap methods because the buff was significant enough to where you would just stay on Calcharo and miss out on that damage. Or you would do the quick swap because you were good enough to make that a worthwhile thing to do, but only your first part of the rotation would be buffed. And later on we saw that Changli Yao was released, and Changli Yao was a direct power creep to Calcharo for two reasons. First off, his damage potential was higher, but also he did not have this issue. Yinlin could outro into him, and he's not a quick swap character, so his entire rotation could benefit from Yinlin's outro buff. This is the same situation, and this hints at most likely a fusion main DPS coming out in the future that will be the same. Not as quick swap friendly, his full rotation can take advantage of Brant's buff, so it makes me wonder, is Changli a worthy pull right now? This seems in theory like a perfect buff for Changli, but it kind of isn't, because Changli's damage potential lowers quite a bit if you don't quick swap. I really feel like Kuro Games should stop doing this with these outro buffs, where if you switch out of a character, you lose the outro buff. They should just lock in the buff to that character, and you can just swap out, swap in. The buff is still on that character, not other characters, just the character it was swapped to. And you can still do cool tech, because I'll be honest, playing Changli without quick swapping is just not as fun. A lot of the fun of her kit is the fact that you can quick swap, and it feels incredible when you master her quick swapping. And Brant has a perfect buff for her, but it restricts her playstyle. And let's be real, Changli's damage profile is much lower without quick swapping. And sure, she gets this massive buff and it brings it back up, but imagine if it did that plus still allowed her to quick swap. She would be such a fun and incredible character to play. So my key takeaway from this is, 1, this buff is perfect for her, except it has a glaring issue, and 2, there's probably going to be a fusion main DPS in the future that will power creep Changli and be able to take full advantage of this buff. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Brant. I am definitely picking him up on both my free-to-play account and my main account. I love his design, I love the kit. His damage potential is insane. You will see his damage is going to be super high, but he does have these two glaring issues. I don't think the energy regen requirement should be this high, but it is doable. Even if you don't reach the 280, you're probably going to be fine. And then the outro skill, which to me is the worst issue, seems perfect for Changli, except there's an anti-synergistic element to it that shouldn't be there in my opinion. But I still think Brant is a great pickup. If you want to pick up Changli, she's going to be the premier fusion DPS for a while. So she's also a worthy pickup except for this. But yeah, I'm excited to pull for Brant. I'm excited to play Brant. And I'm curious to know, what are you planning to do? Are you picking up Brant? Are you picking up his signature weapon? What are your plans? Have you pre-farmed this set? I'm genuinely curious to know. Anyway, that's it for the video. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Peace.